A reading from the Gospel according to John. Then each of them went home, while Jesus went to the Mount of Olives. Early in the morning he came again to the temple. All the people came to him, and he sat down and began to teach them. The scribes and the Pharisees brought a woman who had been caught in adultery, and making her stand before all of them, they said to him, "Teacher, this woman was caught in the very act of committing adultery. Now, in the law of Moses commanded us to stone such women. What do you say?" They said this to test him. They might have some charge to bring against him. Jesus bent down and wrote with his finger on the ground. When they kept on questioning them, he straightened up and said to them, "Let anyone among you who is without sin be the first to throw a stone at her." And once again he bent down and wrote on the ground. When they heard it, they went away, one by one, beginning with the elders, and Jesus was left alone with the woman standing before him. Jesus straightened up and said to her, "Woman, where are they? Has no one condemned you?" She said, "No one, sir." And Jesus said, "Neither do I condemn you. Go your way, and from now on do not sin again." Again Jesus spoke to them, saying, "I am the light of the world. Whoever follows me will never walk in darkness, but will have the light of life." And the Pharisees said to him, "You are testifying on your own behalf. Your testimony is not valid." Jesus answered, "Even if I testify on my own behalf, my testimony is valid, because I know where I have come from and where I am going. But you do not know where I have come from or where I am going. You judge by human standards. I judge no one. Yet even if I do judge, my judgment is valid, for it is not I alone who judge, but I and the Father who sent me. In your law it is written that the testimony of 2 witnesses is valid. If I testify on my own behalf, and the Father who sent me testifies on my behalf." And then they said to him, "Where is your Father?" And Jesus answered, "You know neither me nor my Father. If you knew me, you would know my Father also." He spoke these words while he was teaching in the treasury of the temple, but no one arrested him, because his hour had not yet come. The word of the Lord. Now, I find these passages fascinating for several reasons. One is the first half of that you may recognize as the woman accused of committing adultery, and Jesus saying, "You without sin cast the first stone." It's rather entered into the popular vernacular of people around here saying, "You without sin cast the first stone." What's fascinating about that is this is the passage of the Gospel of John that is thought to not actually be original to John, that it was added at some later point. This is fascinating that even though as biblical scholars, we have found various passages in the Bible that we think were added later and weren't original to the text, and we take those passages out. Even as we found this passage was not original to the Gospel of John, we have conspicuously decided to leave it in anyway, to include it. And I think that that's because there's something about this passage of Jesus looking at people, accusing someone else of sin and condemning them and seeing them as worthy of judgment and punishment, and Jesus saying, "Look within yourself. Have compassion and see within yourself where you also put distance between you and God before you condemn the other." We have found something that speaks so truly in that to us that even though it's not original to the gospel story, we have kept it in there anyway. And I think that's very in keeping with the second half of the story when the crowd is accusing Jesus of testifying on his own behalf. And this part is in the Gospel of John. And his retort when they say, you're testifying on your own behalf. And he says, if the words I am saying are true to what you know of our God, then this is God's testimony. That it is not just me, but it is me and our God that is testifying. So when we hear a truth, a deep-seated truth, such as when you are looking at judging or condemning someone else, first stop and think to yourself, where do you fall short, and where do you put distance between yourself and loving God and loving the people around you? There is an undeniable truth in that. So in this season, I'm certainly mindful, and I invite you likewise to be mindful of thinking that we're called to be people of compassion. We know other people around us are certainly flawed, and we know that we ourselves are certainly flawed. Does it give us a little room for compassion? And if we are being compassionate toward others, extending them that love, that mercy, that forgiveness, that justice, that is something that is coming not just from us, but from God, who wants us to be merciful and just and loving and compassionate.